On day one, we will begin to find the radical zealots and Marxists who have infiltrated the Federal Department of Education, and we will have them escorted from the building.
What's up, everyone? Coach D speaks here. I'm hoping you guys are paying attention to what is going on right now with the Republican Party and the leader of their party, Donald Trump. You know, they've always the Republican Party has pretty much always had the evangelical vote. It's not hard for them because they will typically try to use Christianity as a way to smear Democrats and to gain that evangelical vote. But what they have realized recently is that the evangelical vote is a huge populace, and what they are thinking now is that they can win elections with the evangelical vote alone. And so now the Republican Party, the leaders of that party, like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz, they have gone far over to the right. And when I say they've gone far over to the right, I mean Donald Trump can now stand in front of a crowd of people and say this, what I'm about to show you, and not one person thinks that this is horrible. When you talk about the government moving towards like religious fascism, this is what Donald Trump is saying right out in the open, and Republicans aren't up in arms about this. You would think they would be, because the things he is saying are the things that your typical right-wing gun-owning Republican would call a tyrannical government. What he says in this video is basically why you guys, you on the Republican side, want to keep your guns, because you want to stop things like this from happening. Check out this video.
Still to traditional religious teachings. Under my leadership, we will bring back God to our schools and our public squares, and that will happen very quickly. On day one, we will begin to find the radical zealots and Marxists who have infiltrated the Federal Department of Education, and we will have them escorted from the building.
There's so much wrong with this video. Let me start by saying you cannot take God out of any school or any public square. God is a deity. God is a belief. God is faith to people. So you can't take that out of anything. And when people say this, you see, I remember hearing people, you know, my grandmother, older people in the community say things like, schools got worse when they took God out of it. They never took God out of school. You can go to a school today, you can go to lunchtime today, and you will see multiple kids praying before they eat their food. No one will stop them. What schools did is schools said teachers cannot lead the classroom in prayer. And here's why. When Donald Trump says we're going to put God back in school, most of us are going to ask, which God? Which God are you going to push on every single student in a school? No one wants that. That is religious fascism. Okay, so that's one. You're saying we're going to put God back in school. You can't take God out of school, so I don't even know why that statement is ever made. No one is telling anyone that they can't pray or worship their God in a school setting. No one is telling anyone that they can't pray or worship their God in a public square. This is just a way to get the evangelical vote. We're talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about the guy who pushed a bunch of protesters out of an area so that he could go over to a church for a photo op with a Bible in one of the most awkward videos I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Donald Trump, look at this video of him posing with this Bible in front of a church. That is literally a video of a man who has never held a Bible before. He was having such a hard time trying to figure out how to hold the Bible up. And then in the most awkward way ever, he holds the Bible up and stands there with this awkward look on his face, like someone had to tell him to do that, and he did it all wrong. But he gets to stand up and say, we're going to bring God back into the school districts and bring God back into our public squares. And the evangelicals go, yeah, he's got my vote because that guy's godly. I mean, Republicans are making a joke out of Christianity every single day. Like when they realized that they could run Donald Trump, who has had 3 different wives, cheated on all of them, had separate kids with all of them. When they realized they could run him and they could put at the front of their party someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has cheated on her husband and broke up another family and then got with that guy. And they all get to sit there and talk about how godly and Christian they are. When they realize they could do that, they know now they can do anything and they're going to keep the evangelical vote. They are literally just laughing at evangelicals while taking their vote to win these elections. But then the worst part, he talks about finding Marxists and zealots and extremists and escorting them out of the Department of Education. Like, this is tyranny. This is what you guys have been waiting for. You Second Amendment people, you've been waiting for this. This is the tyranny that you've been waiting to fight against. Who is going to define who's Marxist, who's a zealot, who's an extremist? He's going to, and he says, we're going to do this on day one. On day one, he's going to find the zealots, extremists, and Marxists in the Department of Education and escort them out of the building? And you guys aren't taking up your guns against the tyrannical government right now? Are you serious? This is absolutely crazy. And listen, I'm not actually telling you guys to take your guns up against the government because he hasn't done it yet. But I will tell you this. If the government decides to define who's a Marxist, who's a zealot, and who's an extremist just by their words or their legislation or whatever, and they get to escort them out of the Department of Education, that is tyranny. But let me let Frank Zappa say it, because I came across this video and he explains it perfectly. And I totally agree that governments should, be based in some type of morality. But when that morality is based on a religion and that religion serves one party and that party makes legislation based on that one religion that everyone does not agree with, that is when we are moving toward religious fascism. But look at this video of Frank Zappa saying it perfectly.
In order to really, what is the government's role? You've told me several times what it shouldn't do.
How about national defense?
Yeah, I consider this national defense, pal. Our families are under attack from people like you with these lyrics.
John, you don't have to buy them.
Mr. Zappa,
could I make a statement about national defense?
Yeah.
The biggest threat to America today is not communism. It's moving America toward a fascist theocracy. And everything that's happened during the Reagan administration is steering us right down that pipe.
Oh, wait. One example of a fascist theocracy.
When you have a government that prefers a certain moral code derived from a certain religion, and that moral code turns into legislation to suit one certain religious point of view, and if that code happens to be very, very right-wing, almost toward Attila the Hun...
Well, then you are an anarchist. Every form of civil government is based on some kind of morality, Frank.
Morality in terms of behavior, not in terms of theology.
Seriously, people, start paying attention. This got out of hand a long time ago, but it's getting absolutely disgusting now. Period.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.